Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Today, we're going to be stepping into the ocean, down in the sea, the river, whatever you want to call it, the water-filled depth area. But today we're going to be talking about we're going to be stepping into the Bermuda set, starting off our lots of deck profiles with Chouchou. Chouchou or Chouchou, whatever you would like to call it, is basically one of our G format Bermuda triangle decks. Kind of focuses a lot on putting cards to the bottom of the deck and either drawing or placing cards from the top of your deck onto the field or into your hand. So pretty fun, little entertaining deck. We're going to get right into the deck, but before that, just mention a couple things. Like I said, to keep you guys updated for the next few days, I'll probably be doing 2 videos a day or more just to get caught up to standard, because I've kind of been slacking just because of being sick and like having a girlfriend now and all this crazy stuff going on. But also there is a second channel in the works, so when you guys see that, you guys will see me post a video about it, and then you guys will feel free to check out that second channel. So that will be great. I'm really looking forward to that, just getting all the things done right now to make it happen. And then let's get right into this deck profile. So we're going to flip over our G zone as usual. And then let's get right into it. So let's talk about our grade 3s. We have 7 grade 3s in this deck. Even though our main grade 3, Chouchou Tirua, has a free stride skill, it's kind of an unreliable free stride skill in a way, depending on what happens and what we're playing in. So we do still run the normal amount of stride fodders just in case we can't make that happen. But yeah, our main grade 3 is Chouchou Debut Stage Tirua. Has 2 abilities. The first one is an auto Vanguard ability that says when your G unit strides on top of this unit, counterblast 1. If you do, reveal the top card of your deck and put it into your hand. If that card was a card with Chouchou in its name, then you get to choose up to one of your rear guards put up to the bottom of your deck. And then if you put a card on the bottom of your deck, then you draw a card. So, pretty useful. You're able to kind of refund your field and get rid of some useless spots to make room for drawing cards or having more room on your field. Its second ability is Generation Break 1. During your ride phase, if your number of your rear guards is 1 or less, you can stride for free. So that's what I meant when I said not really reliable on stride skill, because you're not always going to have 1 or less rear guards left. Also, if you're playing stuff like Shiranui that makes you play stuff to board, they're like messing with your free stride condition. So we do just want to run the required stuff just to make sure that we're not getting screwed over and really throwing all of our chips into being able to stride for free on an unreliable free stride skill. Or I should say unguaranteed. So then we have 3 Chouchou Verne. Verne is our backup grade 3, but also really good on the rear guard circle because of what it does. And so Verne's skill is, its Vanguard skill is when a G unit strides on top of this unit, you can counterboss 1, choose any rear guard or card from your hand and put it on the bottom of the deck. If you do, you look at the top 2 cards of the deck and you can call up to 2 Chouchou cards to separate rear guard circles and then shuffle your deck. So pretty useful. Obviously some stuff in the deck requires that you have Tirua in the name, like Ranfa, so those won't be useful, but you will still be able to use an on stride skill and call Chouchou cards to the board to prepare for your big turn. Its Generation Break 2 ability is on the rear guard circle. When this unit is put into your deck from the rear guard circle, you can choose one of your units and it gets plus 5,000 power. So very useful on turns like the Tirua turn. You can just play these in the back row as long as you have Lirunes off. They can boost, and then you can put them all back and gain have the skills go off at the same time. So that's really great. Then going into our grade 2 lineup, we have 4 Chouchou Darina. This is our new 10k in the Chouchou deck. This card is actually really, really strong because it allows you to call a bunch of cards and make multi-attacks in a lot of scenarios where you normally would not be able to. So the first skill of Darina is if the number of your other rear guards with Chouchou in its card name is 1 or less, this unit cannot attack. So when you have this card on the board, you have to have 2 other rear guards with Chouchou in its name for this unit to be able to attack. The second ability is auto rear guard once per turn skill, not generation break, so that is very important because you can use it in the early game. But the skill is when your other rear guard is put into your deck, you can counterboss 1, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and if all those cards have Chouchou in their names, which we're not worried about, every card in this deck is Chouchou. If all those cards have Chouchou in its name, call up to 1 card among them and shuffle your deck. So you're able to multi-attack in the early game, get some cards out, get some things going, and kind of facilitate what you want to do. Then we have forward Chouchou Lirun. So what Lirun does is generation break 1 when it's on the rear guard circle. If you have a Vanguard with Chouchou in its name, this unit gets plus 2,000 power. And then all of your grade 2 or greater rear guards with Chouchou in its name get continuous resist and boost. So very, very good skill. Not much to say about it, but it is very, very good at what it does because it does allow us to kind of fight our control matchups in a way that we couldn't before because we have to call cards to the board. So if we have to call a card to the board, we can just make sure that it's grade 2 or higher, and they'll all have resist and boost, so they can act as grade 1s and stuff like that without hindering us because they don't have resist. So then we have forward Chouchou Ranfa. Chouchou Ranfa skill is when your other rear guard is put into your deck. Counterboss 1, soul boss 1 if you have a Vanguard with the Tirua in its card name. And then you stand this unit and it gets plus 5,000 power. So you basically want to attack with this unit, and then if you send something back using like Irune or using Chouchou popular favorite Tirua skill, then you can restand Ranfa and have it gain 5k, which is really, really good. Then moving into our grade 1 lineup, we have for Chouchou Sonia or Sonia. Chouchou Sonia's skill is when it's placed on the rear guard circle, you can discard a grade 3 from your hand. If you do, you look at the top 7 cards of your deck and you search for 1 grade 2 or greater card with Chouchou in its name. So we haven't really gotten a Stride Fighter that's really like Chouchou Sonia in any deck, which is pretty interesting because this card makes you discard a grade 3 first, and then it makes you check top 7, and you have one of 3 options. You can whiff it, which means that you can completely miss the skill, which means that you just minus for no reason. You can get a grade 2, or you can get a grade 3. And usually the only reason why we use Sonia is because we don't have Tirua in the early game. So this is not a Tirua searcher, it's just a grade 2 or higher Chouchou searcher for discarding a grade 3 that you already have. So you already have to have Verne in your hand, and then you have to discard it, not just reveal, and then add the card to your hand and discard later. So that's very important to remember. And then also the second skill is when this card is on rear guard circle or in hand, if you have a Vanguard with Chouchou Tirua, you can pay the cost for Stride by putting this card into your drop zone. So it also works when it's on the rear guard circle, so it doesn't really punish you for playing into rear guard circle. It still works as a Stride Fighter for you, so very good. Then we have 4 Chouchou Tino for our PGs. Chouchou Tino has 3 abilities. The first one is a Sentinel ability. You can't run more than 4 Sentinels in your deck. You guys know that already. Second ability is when this card is placed on the guard circle, you choose a card with Chouchou in its card name from your hand, discard it, and then you can choose one of your units to attack, and it cannot be hit, so basically perfect guards it for the cost of a Chouchou card from your hand. And then the third ability is a really good one in this deck, is activates in the drop zone. When your rear guard is put on the bottom of your deck or put into the deck during your turn, you can counterboss 1, choose a Chouchou Tino from your drop zone, and then you put it into the bottom of your deck and you return this card to your hand. So you have to have 2 Chouchou Tinos in your drop zone to use this skill. However, when you do use it, you can counterboss 1, put 1 to the bottom, put 1 to your hand. So it kind of works just like Ezra's, the Shadow Paladin PG, except a lot more balanced. Then we have 4 Chouchou Sheila. This is one of our new cards from this set as well. It's something that we needed for a long time too. It has a very basic ability, but very strong at the same time, just because we need resource management in Chouchou. So the skill is when this card is put into your deck from the rear guard circle, countercharge 1 and soul charge 1. So not only does that directly fuel Ranfa, but it directly fuels a lot of things in this deck that, you know, counterbots are important in this deck. And it's really important that we have 4 Sheila now, just because we want that resource management to be under control. Then we have 2 Chouchou Irune rounding out the grade 1 lineup. Chouchou Irune has 2 abilities. The first one is Auto Rearguard Generation Break 1 ability. It says at the end of the battle that this unit boosted, you can choose another Rearguard with Chouchou in its name, put on the bottom, and then you can draw a card. So I really like Chouchou Irune just because of the way that it gets stuff done. And the way that it also synergizes very well with Ronfa and Darina as well. Like you can put a card back with Irune, use Darina to call a new card, or you can put something back with Irune, and then you can use Ronfa to restand Ronfa. So sometimes you can restand Ronfa for like 3 or 4 different times as you're going through your turn, which is honestly insane, but it's really, really good. The second ability of Chouchou Irune is Generation Break 2 when it's on the rearguard circle continuously. During your turn, all of the units with Chouchou in its name in your front row get plus 2,000 power. I honestly wish that they would have made this like a during your turn and not during your turn thing, because that would help make this deck like equal in power to like decks like Coral and stuff like that, and also help you fight other decks a little more efficiently. However, it's only during your turn, which is not that much of a pump, but I guess sometimes it's enough to matter. For a starter, we run one Chouchou Amalia. What Chouchou Amalia does is it has 2 skills. The first one is Forerunner, meaning that it can be moved back to any rearguard circle when it is ridden upon, like most starters in the game. The second effect is at the end of the battle that this unit boosted, you Soul Blast 1, choose another rearguard with Chouchou in its name, put it on the bottom, and then if you do, you draw a card, and then after that, you can choose whether you want to put this card into your soul. And then if you put the card into your soul, you choose 3 of your units with Chouchou in its name, and they get plus 5,000 power until the end of the battle. So, until the end of the turn. So, something very important is you can like use it with Ronfa to get those restands off in the early game. When you first ride to Tirua, if you are the first one to ride to 3, then you can play some early game tactics with your opponent using Amalia, etc. Also, I just always get rid of Amalia against control matchups just because if they're going to get rid of it anyways, I might as well get rid of it for my own benefit than letting them get rid of it for me. Then for our triggers, we run 8 crit, 4 draw, and 4 heal. We run 4 Chouchou Sarah, 4 Chouchou Roberta, 4 Chouchou Pite, and 4 Chouchou Marina. So Sarah, what Sarah does is it is our crit trigger that is kind of like our crit trigger that shoves the soul and does stuff, except it works a little differently in this deck. It's Generation Break 1, first of all, so you can't just have a Tirua in your name, your card name, and then just shove it in the soul and draw a card and gain 5k. At the end of the battle that your Vanguard attack, so it's also at the end of the battle and not at the beginning of the battle. So at the end of the battle that your Vanguard with Chouchou in its name attacked, you can counterboss 1 and shove this card into soul. Then you draw a card and you choose 1 card with Chouchou in its name and call it to rearguard circle, and it gets plus 5,000 power from your hand. So it helps you do multi-attacks. So that's the way that this crit is different, which is really useful in this deck. Then we have 4 Chouchou Roberta. Chouchou Roberta's skill is pretty simplistic. When during the main phase, when it's on the rearguard circle, you can shove it into your soul and countercharge 1. Keeps your resources alive in both Soul Blast and Counter Blast. Then we have Chouchou Pite, which is literally just a Margot clone. Shove itself in a soul, give you one of your units 3k. And then we have Chouchou Marina, which is our new heal trigger for Bermudas that literally allow them to bind 2 heals whenever you G-guard. If you have 2 heals in your drop zone, you can bind both of them to countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. Just another way to keep your resource management alive. We would be running, moving on to our G-Zone, we would be running 1 Mogito, but they don't have that on area, so Megito and Mogito are the same, so they just have Megito on Cardfight area. So we do run 1 Zeroth Dragon of Distant Sea Megito. Megito can be pretty good in this deck, just depending on what your opponent has, what damage they're at, how many cards they have in their hand, because you can do like a lot of different little combos with the Chouchou cards to make it worth your while. But it really requires that you run a different backup grade 3. You need to run the other Chouchou grade 3 that allows you to multi-attack for Megito to be really good. But obviously Megito is always good in the situation where you have like 1 or 2 cards in your one or two cards in your hand after drawing, and you don't have a field and you wouldn't be able to make that good of a turn. Your opponents have 5 damage, they're almost finished off. If one of the cards that you have is a Chouchou Tirua, you can just go ahead and ultimate stride into Megito and hope that it works out. But Megito's skill is when it's placed on Vanguard Circle, Counterboss 2. If you do, you choose up to 5 cards in total from your hand or drop zone, call them a separate Rearguard Circle, Until the end of the turn, they get plus 5,000 power, and a rearguard skill that says at the end of the battle that this unit attacks, you can choose one of your other rearguards, and it may exchange units with this position. So after you use Megiddo skill, sorry guys. After you use Megiddo skill, you will be counterbossing 2 to call 5 cards to the field from your drop zone or your hand. Probably from drop zone is best, just because it's not wasting cards from your hand, and you get to keep those cards in case you happen to not kill them with Megiddo. But then after every card attacks, it gets to switch positions with another card. So you can call 5 cards that are like 16k, and then like attack, and then attack with Megiddo and try to end the game. Moving on, we have 2 Chouchou popular favorite, Tirua. This is our new Stride Tirua for this deck. Is really, really good. So good, in fact, that most Bermuda decks run some copies of it, even if they're not running the Chouchou deck. So it has 2 abilities. The first one is an Axe Vanguard ability. It's once per turn. It says flip any unit in your G-Zone face up. And then this unit gets a continuous Vanguard skill that says all your units with Chouchou in its card names in your front row get plus 5,000 power for each of your open rearguard circle. And then the Generation Break 3 ability is once per turn. At the end of the battle that this unit attacks, you can choose up to 3 of your rearguards, put them onto the bottom of your deck in any order. And then if 3 cards are put, you stand this unit, and this unit gets -2 drive. So it is a restander. I think it's the first restander that Bermuda has gotten in the form of a Stride card, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just very, very good, and it allows every Bermuda deck access to a restander, but especially in this deck, it's super good because of the first skill, giving all the cards in your front row with Chouchou 5k for every open circle. So after you put back 3 cards, there'll be 3 open circles, and you get plus 15k to your front row, which is really good. Then we have 1 Chouchou Lively icon, Ilya. We really only use Ilya when we either first stride, and we want to go into Ilya to like reset our hand. Like, we have to have a lot of triggers in our hand for me to be okay with going into Ilya. That's why we run it as a 1-of, because Ilya's skill is Vanguard, once per turn, Soul Blast 1, and choose 5 of your rearguards with Chouchou in its name, put them on the bottom of your deck, draw 3 cards, and to the end of the turn, this unit gets plus 20,000 and a critical. So if we just have a hand flooded with triggers, this card really helps because it allows us to just put all those triggers back into the deck and then draw 3 new cards, which will probably be actual units, and then we can just like facilitate from there or try to get things done from there. Then we have 4 Chouchou Headliner Lapria. Lapria's skill is when it attacks counterboss 1 and flip a Lapria face up in your G-Zone. If you do, you choose up to 2 of your rearguards for each face up card in your G-Zone and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. And then if you do, you draw the same number of cards as the number of cards that you put back. And then if you have a Chouchou Heart card, then you draw a card. And if you drew 4 or more cards in total, including from the draw that you just drew, then you choose up to 5 cards from your hand and call them to rearguard circle. So Lapria is basically a multi-attacker, or like a multi-attacking turn. But I basically use Lapria as first stride a lot when I'm not GB3. Like, I haven't strode at all and I haven't G-guarded at all, then I usually go into Lapria just to reset my board and set myself up for the next turn, the next 2 turns of Tirua. And usually on the Tirua turns, they just die, so that's good. And then we have 2 Perfect Perform Angie. We're really only running this for the Link Joker matchup because Chouchou can't really fight Link Joker effectively without Ange, in my opinion. But Ange's skill is once per turn, Generation Break 2, Counterboss 2, flip a card from your G-Zone, choose any number of cards on your fighter's circles other than Vanguard circle and return them to the hand. This unit gets plus 5,000 shield for every returned card. And if you return 5 or more, you draw a card. And if you return 7 or more, this unit gets plus 1 drive. So ideally, you want to return all of your opponent's cards on the board to their hand, and then all of your locked cards on the board to your hand. And then based on the number of cards you return, you get like to draw a card, or you get extra drive or something like that. Then rounding out our regular G units, we have 1 Festal Finale, Final Priscilla. Final Priscilla is our Generation Break 8. Its skill is at the end of the battle that this unit attacks a Vanguard. You can discard a card. If you do, you return all your rearguards to your hand. Then you choose up to 5 rearguards from your hand, call them to separate rearguard circle, and they all get plus 5,000 power. So Final Priscilla can be really, really good when you just need to force your opponent into a game loss with a bunch of multi-attacks. If your opponent's at 5 damage, you can just kind of ram into them and hope that all of it works. And you can also do multi-attacks with the Chouchou skills too, like if you have like Chouchou Irune and like Chouchou Dorina on the field and stuff like that. Then we have our G Guardians. We run 5 G Guardians. We run 1 Best Sparkle Sandy. Best Sparkle Sandy is our newest G Guard. Or sorry, not our newest G Guard, but like our G Flip Guard from the fighter selection. It has a Generation Break 1 ability that says when this unit is placed on guard circle, flip a G unit or a G Guardian face up in your G zone, and then if you do, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield for every 2 cards in your hand until the end of the battle. And then if you do, you can counter. After that, you make counter boss 1, and if you do, this unit gets plus 5,000 additional shield after that. So you basically want to use this when you have a lot of cards in your hand, or when you don't have any units on the board, because the other 2 G Guardians are reliant on having units on the board to use their skill. So you want to have that 1 Sandy waiting around just for that rainy day, basically. But we do have Chouchou Cradle Lullaby Melina. What Melina does is when this unit is placed on guard circle, choose one of your rear guards with Chouchou in its name, put it on the bottom of your deck. If you do, you can countercharge 1, and this unit gets plus 10,000 shield, so it's 36k block. But you also get to countercharge for it, and you also get to put a card to the bottom, which is putting you even closer to free stride skill. Then we have 1 Chouchou Engage Lead Plady. Plady does the same thing as Melina, except it costs a Soul Blast, and you put a Chouchou card to the bottom. And then if you do, you draw a card, and this card gets plus 5,000. So it's a 31k defense, and it also allows you to draw an extra card, which is really, really, really solid. Opening back up our games so that I can show you guys how the games went. So we're going to be loading Chouchou 1. So game 1, we're playing against Narukami. Our opponent rides, we ride, we attack for 12. Our opponent takes it. They draw, they ride Glycel, call Glycel. They attack our Vanguard, we take it, we guard the rear guard. Then we call Dorina. I actually did this all wrong because I was supposed to call 1 to one side and then call the other, but I ended up using Dorina anyways to get Lee Rune, and then I attacked the rear guard and I had to bind 1 for that. Our opponent rides Sparking, uses the skill of Starter to make us bind 1, and then attacks our Vanguard. We need counter boss, so we just no guarded. I was really hoping that they crit me, and they did, so that's really good. We stand and draw Tirua. We use the on-stride skill to get an extra card back, put extra cards back and draw. And then we attack with our rear guards first, and we attack with Lapria, putting 2 cards back, drawing 3 cards, doing our triple drive. And then we do our starter skill after we do our heal to end up putting back our grade 2 as well. And then we put our starter into the soul to avoid it being sniped by our opponent. So then our opponent goes into their stride, plays Plasmatron, makes us bind from our drop zone, and also uses the skill of V-Buster, making us bind from our drop zone, and the on-stride ability. They use the skill of Plasmatron to make it super big, so it's 32, I take it, and then they check a grade 3, a grade 2, and a stand trigger, so they stand their rear guard, I take that, and then I take the rear guard as well. I free stride into Tirua. I call out 2 Lee Runes, and then I call out a crit trigger just because I wanted to go back to the deck. I attack for 19, and then I attack for 13. Use Lee Rune skill, put 1 back, and then counter blast, soul blast, call out. And then I literally just attack with Chouchou Tirua. I go 1, 2, draw trigger, power to Vanguard. And then our opponent just no guarded that because they didn't have enough to guard it. So that just ends up being GG, and that's just an example of how a game can just go really quick. Like, most of the games, especially in the Bermuda decks that are out now, are just like really quick to end the game just because of how powerful their effects are. So it's very important to keep an eye on what your opponent is doing. Are they G-guarding first, and then are they gonna plan to go into a more powerful stride, or are they holding back a little bit? They want to do a little more of a conservative play. Just really keep an eye on your opponent when they're playing the game and the way that their play style is, or what they have access to. But our second game, we're playing against Silverthorn. Our opponent rides Irina and then attacks us, crits us. We take 2 damage. And then they use the skill of their starter. So we check top 7 to get a Dorina. We play Dorina to the field. We attack. They get a draw trigger. We get a draw trigger. And then they use Dorina's skill, or sorry, I use Dorina's skill, etc. So he uses the draw triggers ability. Like he plays a Rainbow Magician from his hand, puts it in the soul and soul charges one. Because he thought that it was the dark irregular draw trigger, like kind of like that one, like Hysteric Shirley. But they don't work the same. So I was basically just talking to him about like why he was using Rainbow Magician the whole time, because he just continued after that, and then after that he just quit. So I assumed I was gonna win that game anyways because it's Silverthorn. But there's no way to really know. And I wanted to just record that as a game just to show that like most of the people on the Cardfight area are literally just not that bright. Which is awful for when you're trying to record a bunch of footage and people are just being dumb. But our last match is actually against Domination, which is a really good showcase. So we go first and we ride. We pass over to them. They attack us. They get a heal trigger. We get a heal trigger, unfortunately. We attack for 7, then we attack for 14. And then we soul charge one. We get attacked for 14. We take it. We get a crit. We ride, and then we attack with a grade 3 that we played. We double check, and we get a crit trigger, so we do 2 damage to our opponent. Use the skill to put it back. And then our opponent has to G assist. And I saw their hand, and I was like, oh no. For them, at least. And then they use Boo Ride to draw a card. They actually drew into a grade 3, so God bless for them. So he was making me call a Superior Call Irune, and then he chose to do Lirune after it, which gave me like a great idea because I basically forced him into a scenario where he had to call Lirune to attack my Vanguard to have enough time. And Lirune, when his Generation Break, gains resist and stuff, so they dominated, and then I G-guarded just so that I could get Generation Break 1. And then he used Sadasugu to kill it, and then he couldn't use Magen Timbu because I didn't have any rear guards on the board. So he just moved his rear guards up, called Tenrei, and then he attacks us for 33. We no guard, he checks a crit, and a heal, which I was like, oh, you lucky bastard. And then we get a draw, so Power to Vanguard draw, and then we take the last attack as well. And then we go into Chouchou Tirua for free. We play 3 cards to the rear guard circle, or sorry, all 5 cards to the rear guard circle. And then we attack for 22. Our opponent G-guards into get Horicon, so he steals our grade 1, which is fine because we were intending on putting these 3 back anyways. So attacks for 42. He was asking what skill can my grade 3s boost from, and it was Lirune. So we check all 3 cards, and we get a crit and a heal as well, so I'm like, oh, maybe I'm actually just as broken as this guy. But then we use the skill to restand, and then we attack with a crit. He PGs, and then he G-guards our rear guard. It makes me call a card to the board, and then he strides. He can't, he tried to do the stride skill, but he can't use either of them because they both have resist from Lirune. And I swear he was having the hardest time, like, understanding that he couldn't target them because of resist. But he also used Rene's skill. He made me call 2, so I called 2 Dorinas, and because of Dorina's first ability, to not be able to attack when there's one or less other Chouchou cards on the board, he can't attack with the Dorinas, so it has basically totally screwed him, because he wasn't able to get any like regular attacks off during his Rene turn. So I'm explaining to him like why the 10Ks aren't dominated, why they can't, or they are dominated technically, but they just can't attack. My opponent says, wow, this deck really screws my deck, and I'm just like, if I play it smart and I get the right cards, sure. But my opponent says that they're thinking, they have a PG and a crit in their hand. I PG the Vanguard, they get a crit, all power to Tamagane, a draw, all power to Tamagane, heal, all power to Tamagane, heal. And then we take the first check, which is a draw trigger, and we draw into a vanilla crit trigger, so we just play that. Then we play 3 arenas on the rear guard circle, ready to make like a really big offensive play. We attack for 21. He guards with a 10 and a 5. We attack for 21. He guards with a 10 and a 5. And then we attack for 36. And we are actually going to do enough attacks to kill him, in my opinion, but we did check double crit. So that just ends up making the game a lot faster. And then he takes 3 damage. None of them are healed because he healed like a lot already, I guess. So that ends up being GG. But yeah, the Chouchou deck is basically something that you just have to get really used to and get used to playing around it. If you have a lot of domination players in your area, that might be a deck that you could look into playing because it has like a really great matchup unexpectedly against that deck. But yeah, that has been the Chouchou FutureFight Vanguard video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did like the video or dislike the deck because it's toxic, or if you like the deck, be sure to leave a like on the video. Helps a lot more than you guys think. Also, be sure to subscribe, stay updated, and support the channel. And click the bell button after subscribing to get a notification whenever a video goes live. If you guys want to check out our social medias in the description down below, there is our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then if you guys want to support the channel a little more than liking and subscribing, then you can check out our Patreon or our merch store. But with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.